when the Eagles' schedule first came out, I looked at it and I was like, "Where's that trap game at? Where's that trap game at?" Let's see, Week 3, Pittsburgh. Probably gonna lose that outright, and that's not a trap scenario. Okay, Week 4 we got the bye. Week 5, oh, going to Detroit, coming off the bye. Nah, the Eagles are a better team on paper. They'll probably beat Detroit. Week 6, Week 6 at Washington. First NFC East matchup. That's the trap game. Inexperienced rookie quarterback. That's the trap game. Eagles are going to lose. I don't feel that way anymore. Well, for one reason, because it seems that the trap game ended up being the week before in Detroit, and the Eagles obviously didn't win that game. I don't feel that this is going to be that trap game now. Well, like I said, obviously you're coming off a loss. You usually don't get trapped coming off a loss or considered to be a trap. Because I think last week was more of a fluky loss than anything else and not what this team is really about. Now, that's not taking anything away from Detroit. Obviously, they finished with more points and they won the game. But the 14 penalties, you're not going to see that again in this game. A fumble with a chance to have a time-killing drive or set up for a field goal at worst with a couple minutes left, you're not going to see that fumble again. Well, for one, because you're not going to be handing off to Matthews in a little swoop formation to the outside, or you're just going to see Kenyon Barner or Smallwood in the game, which, by the way, given the game Smallwood had against Pittsburgh, where he had it was like high 60s, low 70s in yardage, how do you give him the ball 0 times the next week? How do you give Kenyon Barner the ball 0 times the next week? And you just primarily stick with Ryan Matthews, and he ends up kicking you in the dick with that outside arm carry into contact fumble. That's one of the two of the things I won't understand is why Barner and Smallwood weren't used at all, and why Nigel Bradham was switched out on certain formations at linebacker for Michael Kendricks, a guy who hasn't been able to cover a small child in a Pop Warner game. All right, he's getting switched in and got burnt for a couple touchdowns in the first half of that Detroit game. Why you would switch him in when Nigel Bradham is playing to the moon at his position right now, and the team saying "Oh no, it had nothing to do with disciplining him for getting caught with that gun in that at the airport in Miami. It had nothing to do with that. We were just trying different formation packages." What? What? Enough of doing that shit. All right, keep Kendricks off of the field as much as possible, especially when you got Nigel Bradham playing lights out at the position. You ain't gonna see any more dicking around with that unless they absolutely have to, unless there's an injury or something. Okay. Now, Carson Wentz is money, all right? And that's the theme this year until he proves otherwise. Yes, he had a bad interception, one that I criticized him for, but frankly, the team shouldn't have been in that position to have Carson Wentz throw up that pick, all right? They should have been, because he did more than enough to come from behind, down 14 points twice in that game, to come from behind and retake that lead behind Carson Wentz's lead, all right? Carson Wentz looked calm, poised, didn't look frazzled, getting down 21-7 right away. Didn't bother this kid. He's got ice in the veins. I think Carson Wentz knows the importance of this game because this is his first game against an NFC East opponent, all right? We've seen what this kid can do against the Chicagos and the Browns and the Lions, and frankly, I'm not disappointed with his performance against the Lions. I mean, critical last pass he had, but again, it shouldn't have came down to that. Shouldn't have came down to that. So I can only fault him so much for a scenario that, frankly, he shouldn't have been no business in having to make a decision there. And this is one of the easier games left on the schedule. Because if you look at strength of schedule remaining, the Eagles have the number 1 toughest schedule remaining. And there's teams people are forgetting about teams like the Giants. They're like, oh, the Giants have caught so many losses right now. They're not going to be in contention to win the NFC East. Really, if you look at the strength of the schedules that teams played so far, the Giants have had absolutely one of the toughest sets of games so far, especially going to Minnesota, going to Green Bay on back-to-back weeks. That's very tough. Very tough, especially not even going to Green Bay, but going to Green Bay off of Green Bay coming off the bye. And if you look at strength of schedules remaining, Giants have one of the easier ones. The Giants still haven't played the Browns. The Giants still haven't played the Bears. They haven't played the weak teams like that yet. And so you have teams like, like the Eagles playing the Bears, the Browns, the Lions, losing against the Lions, and teams like Dallas who have played Chicago, San Francisco, weak teams like that. And everyone's kind of forgetting about the Giants in this division. Don't sleep on them because they still got to play teams like the Bears and the Browns. So every single one of these NFC East games is that much more important right now. Because if you sleep on a team like the Giants, they become the little G-men that could, and before you know it, they're in the Super Bowl, and you're all like, wow, what happened? I wrote that team off by week 6. What happened? It's because teams sleep on a team like that. All right? So these NFC East games, and I think Carson Wentz fully understands the importance of this game, and he's going to arson Landover, Maryland. Carson Wentz is going to come out and set fire to Landover, all right? He's going to burn FedEx Field to the fucking ground. Which, frankly, that field's a piece of shit anyway. It deserves to be burned down. But anyway, I think Carson Wentz is going to do his thing. And I have no reason to not believe that he isn't going to be money on the field until he shows me he's not going to be. Because this kid has been calm, cool, collected, poised, intelligent, everything you want out of a quarterback, especially out of a rookie quarterback who's never played a game in the NFL coming into this season and played one half of preseason football. I mean, this kid has just been blowing my mind. So, I think Carson Wentz is going to do his thing. And one of the easier things, and I'm not rooting for a guy that got injured who's a big weapon, but Jordan Reed, 6 concussions in 6 years, probably not going to play. I won't lie, that's the biggest thing I feared facing this Redskins team, is because he's one of the best tight ends in the game right now. I'm not saying no. I hope he retires because I don't want to face him anymore. But I hope he retires from the fact that 6 concussions in 6 years shows you that you need to really assess your career path in life. The same way I feel about Romo, who I really don't want to see him come back to play because I want to see guys like Reed and Romo able to walk when they leave the game, hopefully years from now. But at the same time, it's something. Again, I don't want to harp too much on that, but I still care about human beings, even though they're playing for the rival team. Anyway, Big V, I'm not even going to attempt to say Vitai's entire name because I'll look like a fool. Big V, who I'm going to refer to him from here on out, coming in for Lane Johnson at tackle. And the whole Lane Johnson thing, people have been asking me about that. Lane Johnson's getting exactly what he deserved. And people are saying like, oh no, he did everything he could. He used that app on his phone that was supposed to tell him if what he was taking was good for you or not. And folks, if you have one PED violation for you already, you got to make triple, quadruple, sextuple sure that what you're putting in your body is absolutely not going to ding you in a piss test. Because for 2 reasons. Number 1, you're responsible for whatever you put in your body. All right? Especially in a profession like working in the National Football League and playing on the field for them. All right? If you have to take piss tests, you better make damn for certain sure everything. I don't even care if it's a handful of candy corn. You better be damn sure you're not going to fail a piss test. I like candy corn. Am I one of the few people that likes candy corn, especially around, just in autumn, just seeing like the leaves fall and having a big handful of candy corn? I'm like, taste that sugar. What the fuck is this doing to my liver? Anyway, and number 2, 90+% of every single offensive lineman every year they've been doing piss tests do not get busted for taking some sort of PED. All right? So if the far, far, far majority of people at Lane Johnson's position, be it tackle, guards, or centers, do not fail piss tests, then what's your excuse for failing? All right? Everyone else seems to magically figure out a way to not fail a piss test, but you don't. Twice. And that's the thing. It's so hard to take him for his word when he's already been busted for a piss test violation, for a PED violation. Selene, you deserve to lose millions, and I just hope you don't cost this team games because, you know, as much of a knucklehead as you are for failing a PED test twice, he was playing very well for this team. Except him and Kelsey should have been able to get that fumble that Matthews had in the end of the Detroit game. Moving on from that game. Moving on. See, just thinking about the end of that Detroit game just brings up all sorts of noxious noises from me. All right, now, I won't be kidding you if I think that, if I say to you, oh, there's just absolutely no way that the Washington Redskins are going to win this game, because the Washington Redskins can win this game. This is always a fluky matchup for the Eagles. Even when the Eagles looks way better on paper, it's like Washington always seems to play this team close. All right, this is that one NFC East team. I'm just like oh man, oh god, get well ahead, or else I'm not going to feel good going into the fourth quarter. I won't be surprised if Washington wins this game, because they obviously can for any number of reasons. One of which is that our corners still aren't anything to write home about, and Kirk Cousins is a guy that can still pull out a 400-yard plus game just at any time. But the defensive line has got to get pressure. They got to stop taking Nigel Bradham out of the game in the first half like they did last week. Even though the coaches say, like, oh, no, it wasn't any sort of punishment for him getting caught with a gun in Miami on the bye week. It had nothing to do with that. We're just experimenting with different You're experimenting with different formation packages. With Michael Kendricks in for Nigel. Get the fuck out of here. Kendricks got burnt for 2 of those touchdowns last week in the first half. All right, Nigel Bradham is not going to be cycled out in any sort of like nickel coverage package or anything like that, like you saw in that first half of the game against Detroit. Like, that was obviously, there was some sort of damage they were trying to do punitively to what punitively, like they took money from. I don't know what the fuck that was about, but it seemed like they were trying to punish him for that whole incident in the Miami airport 2 weeks ago, I should say. And it was just fluke 14 penalties. Fluke 14 penalties. You're not going to see that. And as to the people that are lining up on the Ben Franklin Bridge, ready to jump off after one loss, and I get that the Eagles have the hardest schedule remaining, and I get that it was a team that they should have beaten, a game they should have, could have, would have won, but they didn't. Carson Wentz is still money, guys. Carson Wentz is still money, and there is still a bright, bright future here. I mean, God forbid we get this guy a certified Class A receiver, a la what you saw with McNabb and Owens. Oh boy, oh my God, I won't lie, I'm getting semi-hard thinking about that. No homo. Anyway, who can? That's total homo. Anyway, Carson Wentz is money, and again, if you're that upset, what, did you have this team in the Super Bowl this year? Like, here's a spoiler for you: the Eagles aren't winning the Super Bowl this year. Like, it just ain't happening. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm an all or nothing type guy, because frankly, winning the NFC East, winning one playoff game and then bowing out like in Green Bay or wherever, that means nothing to me. It means absolutely nothing to me. I want a Super Bowl here. I'm getting too fucking old. I've seen this team win the NFC East again and again and again and again and again, and win a playoff game again and again and again and again. And I haven't seen them win that final playoff game in the Super Bowl. That's all I really care about right now. Again, I'm all or nothing. Now, this year, I'm making an exception with that, in that you got a rookie franchise quarterback that looks like the sky is the fucking limit. So not winning the Super Bowl is completely acceptable. Completely. Would I like to see him get in the playoffs and get some playoff experience? Absolutely. It's obviously better than not making the playoffs. But again, no falling short is going to disappoint me this year, unless like they run the table and go 15-1 and then die in the first week of the playoffs. Like, anything short of that, and I'm not going to be that much upset at all. So Carson Wentz is still money. He's gonna. I think you're gonna see Arson Wentz again. You're gonna see a 300+ yard game out of him. I think he's gonna have plenty of time in the pocket, even with Big V coming into play. I think they're gonna do just fine. Because even though I feel you're gonna see much more pressure in his face, this is a kid who's 80+% thrown into the blitz right now. He's been instinctively very good in the pocket. You haven't seen too much of that what's called happy feet, where they go, oh, God, I'm panicked. Oh, I'm going to run here, run there. Oh, I just eat the turf because I don't know where to go. Like, you haven't seen that much of that out of him. In fact, I've yet to see it at all with Carson Wentz. This kid is playing like a veteran, 10 years in the league. I know, I just feel so good knowing that Carson Wentz is our quarterback here. So good. And it's so nice. But tell you what, you can't sleep on these NFC East games. Can't sleep on them. I could give you kind of a pass for sleeping in that first half against Detroit. All right? That's a game that you can learn from, and you deserve to get knocked on your ass and have a team's mettle tested. And we're going to see what the answer to that is this week. So, if anything, I'm curious because I'll tell you what right now. Eagles lose this game against Washington and Dallas goes into Green Bay and wins on Sunday night. That's all she wrote for the NFC East, people. I'm sorry to break it to you. Don't hold hopes on winning the NFC East because, man, it's all but done. I don't care if you say it's too early in the season to predict that because Dallas has a pretty lenient schedule remaining comparatively to the Eagles. And again, don't sleep on the Giants. Don't sleep on the Giants, people. So that's about everything we have to say. I got the Eagles winning this game. Will I be surprised if they lose? Absolutely not. But I still continue to see Carson Wentz be money, and until he proves he is not money, I am not going to say he's going to have an off day. So, Arson Wentz, make the appearance, burn Landover, Maryland to the ground. That stadium is complete shit anyway. The turf is terrible. It's injured so many quarterbacks. Anyways. Deshaun Jackson, we love you here in Philly. We'll take you back for a year. You know what I'm saying? Don't fuck us up too bad this Sunday, please. Please. Rest your legs. Save it for next week. I'm just kidding. I want to see Deshaun. That's the thing. I want to see a team at full force. All right? I want to see Washington give everything they got because I want my team to be tested by the best. And again, it stinks that Jordan Reed probably, last I heard, he's not going to be playing because he's still going through concussion protocol. That's a huge loss for Washington if he's not going to be playing. Anyway, Big V, I'll settle for just average. Settle for just average play in the O-line. Jason Peters, oh my God, please stay healthy. Oh God, please stay. I jinxed the fucking shit out of that now. And Chip Kelly, have fun with Kaepernick. That is all. Bye.